Deaf girl sold by her drunk father. Then the cowboy realized she heard every word. The stench of cheap whiskey hung heavy in the air, mixing with the dust of the saloon floor. Elellanor, a girl of 16, stood rigidly beside her father, a man whose face was a roadmap of dissipation. His eyes, bleary and unfocused, scanned the small crowd of rough-looking men. Elellanor kept her gaze fixed on the worn wooden floor, her shoulders hunched. People always assumed her silence meant she heard nothing. They were wrong. She was deaf, yes, but she read lips with a quiet intensity, born of necessity. She heard every word. "She's a quiet one," her father slurred, his voice surprisingly loud in the hushed room. "No trouble. Good worker. Strong." He gripped her arm, pushing her slightly forward. "And cheap. Nobody wants a deaf girl, right? So, make me an offer. $20? $30? A few snickers rippled through the onlookers. A gruff voice called out, "What's she good for if she can't hear?" Eleanor's father just laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "That's why she's cheap. Good for chores. Won't talk back." He gave Elellanor a shove. "Right, girl? You'll do what you're told." Elellanor flinched. She saw his lips form the cruel words, felt the tremor of his anger. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She was used to his drunken rages, his casual cruelty. But this was a new low, sold like a worn-out saddle. A man stepped forward from the shadows at the back of the room. He was tall, lean, with the kind of weathered face that spoke of too many lonely miles. This was Jake, a cowboy with a quiet reputation for fairness, and a past he rarely spoke of. He had seen too much injustice in his life, and the sight of a young girl being paraded like livestock stirred something deep within him. "50, Jake rumbled, his voice low but clear. Eleanor's father's eyes lit up with greedy surprise. "50? For her? You serious, cowboy?" "I am," Jake replied, his gaze unwavering as he looked at Elellanor. His eyes held no malice, no judgment, just a steady, calm appraisal. He saw her flinch, saw the subtle way she tracked his lips. He saw something in her eyes, a sharp intelligence that belied her still demeanor. Elellanor watched his lips. 50. I am. A flicker of something she couldn't name. Relief? Bewilderment? Crossed her face. Her father quickly grabbed the money Jake offered, stuffing it into his pocket without another glance at his daughter. He stumbled out of the saloon, leaving Elellanor standing alone, utterly abandoned. If you like these stories, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Jake slowly approached Elellanor. He knelt down, bringing his face to her level, speaking slowly and clearly so she could read his lips. "My name's Jake. You're safe now. I'm taking you to my ranch. You'll have a roof, food, work, but fair work." Elellanor watched him, her eyes wide. She saw the genuine kindness in his gaze, the steady rhythm of his words. She heard every word, not with her ears, but with an understanding that went deeper than sound. She saw that he knew. He realized she heard every word. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through her. A tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Jake stood, his gaze soft. He gently placed a hand on her arm, leading her out of the noisy, reeking saloon and into the cool, clean air of the street. He helped her onto his horse, her small weight barely a presence before him. He turned his horse towards the open plains, away from the town, away from the cruelty. The journey to his ranch was long and mostly silent. Jake spoke little, but when he did, he made sure Elellanor could see his lips. He told her about the ranch, about the horses he ran, the cattle. He spoke of the quiet life out on the range, the wide open spaces. He treated her with a quiet respect, not as a deaf girl, not as a purchased servant, but as a person. Elellanor, in turn, began to emerge from her shell. She was still quiet, but now it was a choice, not a defense. She quickly learned the chores, her keen eyes missing nothing, her hands quick and efficient. She would observe Jake, learning his rhythms, anticipating his needs. She would bring him fresh coffee before he asked, mend a torn saddle strap before he noticed. She saw the quiet loneliness in him, a shared understanding of solitude that transcended words. Jake found himself relying on her more than he ever thought he would. Her quiet presence filled the empty ranch house, a silent warmth he hadn't realized he was missing. He saw her intelligence, her resilience, her unwavering spirit. He saw the girl, not the deaf girl her father had sold, but Elellanor. One evening, as they sat by the fire, the only sounds the crackle of burning wood, Jake looked at her. He spoke slowly, carefully. "You're a good hand, Elellanor. Better than most. I'm glad you're here." Elellanor looked at his lips, then her gaze met his. A small, genuine smile touched her lips, a rare and beautiful thing. She reached out, placed her hand gently on his arm, a silent acknowledgement of his words, of his kindness. She heard him, truly heard him, in a way her own father never could. The cowboy had realized she heard every word, and in doing so, he had given her not just a home, but a voice, a place where she was truly seen and understood. And in the quiet expanse of the ranch, a new life built on respect and silent understanding began to unfold for them both. The days on Jake's ranch settled into a rhythm, not of loud words, but of quiet understanding. Elellanor, with her sharp eyes and quick hands, became an indispensable part of the homestead. She took to the chores with a meticulousness that surprised Jake, mending tack, tending a small vegetable patch she'd started from seeds he didn't even remember having, and keeping the cabin clean and orderly. She found comfort in the routine, in the predictable kindness of Jake. Her silence was no longer a cage, but a space where she observed, learned, and grew. Jake, in turn, found a quiet purpose he hadn't known since his own losses. He'd find himself making small adjustments for her, ensuring his lips were always visible when he spoke, sketching out instructions with his finger in the dirt, or pointing to a distant hawk for her to spot. He saw the genuine smiles that now brightened her face, the quiet joy she found in a blooming cactus or the birth of a new calf. She brought a gentle warmth back into a house that had been cold and empty for too long. One crisp evening, as the last light bled from the sky, Elellanor sat on the porch step, meticulously patching a tear in a canvas tarp. Jake watched her from his chair, his gaze thoughtful. He cleared his throat, and Elellanor looked up, her eyes immediately focusing on his lips. "Heard tell of a school in the next valley," Jake said slowly, his voice softer than usual. "Not much of one, but might be good. For you." Eleanor's hands stilled. A school. The idea was foreign, terrifying, and yet a spark of something hopeful flickered within her. She looked at Jake, a question in her eyes. Jake understood the unspoken query. "It's your choice, Elellanor," he said, meeting her gaze. "Always your choice now." A profound sense of awe washed over Elellanor. Choice. The word felt heavy, precious. She thought of the life she'd been sold into, where choices were never hers. Here, with Jake, she was not just seen, but respected. The cowboy had bought her freedom. Yes, but more than that. He had given her a future she never dared to dream of. A life where her silence was understood, and her voice, though unspoken, was finally heard.